your bookings slow down during your low season, what's the first thing you're tempted to do? Lower your prices. But what if dropping your rates is actually the wrong move? Hey friend, I'm Stacy St. John. I'm a short-term rental investor and property manager, and I manage a portfolio of about 45 properties. And if there's one thing I've learned about revenue management, it's that low season requires a strategy of its own. Your goal isn't simply to get booked at any cost. It's to capture the demand that is there without unnecessarily giving away your revenue. And that's exactly what we're digging into in this PriceLabs training. Kyle from PriceLabs is going to show us exactly how PriceLabs accounts for seasonality and changing demand, how to think differently about your rates and your minimum stays during slower periods, and how you can create seasonal strategies instead of treating every month of the year exactly the same. And stay with us to the end because we're going to answer the question that every host eventually asks during slow season. How do I know if my price is actually the problem? Kyle is going to show us how to look at that market data, evaluate where your property is positioned, and determine whether you really need to lower your price or whether something else may be keeping you from getting booked. Because low season doesn't mean a race to the bottom. So let's go ahead and dive in. So today we are joined by Kyle Driscoll, a senior solutions consultant at PriceLabs. Kyle, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Miss Stacy, for having me. Looking forward to another fun session with you.
I know. So we are going to talk about low season. And low season is not really a topic that a lot of people love to chat through. But I think it's so important that we give insight on what we should actually be changing for our low seasons. Because a lot of people just assume I just have to lower my price. So let's dive into that. When low season is hitting, again, and people might be automatically thinking, I just got to go lower pricing. Why is that actually the wrong move from your perspective?
Yeah, it's such a conundrum to be in because we obviously think like, hey, let's hammer our prices down and that's going to fill it up. But there's only a finite amount of people that are traveling during low season. And a lot of times they're not necessarily just looking for the deal. They're looking for something specific. Just as a quick example, I personally do not like traveling during peak seasons, probably because I understand the pricing side of it and I like finding deals. But I also, when I travel during low season, I never start by looking at the bottom. There's so much inventory available. You can find some incredible properties at a discounted rate, but not a bottomed out rate. Mm-hmm. And if your property has incredible value in it, yes, rates may need to be a little bit lower, but you don't have to hammer them down. If you do hammer them down and you've got a really nice property, like let's just say you've got a 3-bedroom that has an outdoor pool that can still be accessed or something like that, and you go and you offer $79 as a rate, some people may not book that because they think it's too good to be true, or there's something else that's going to happen, or you know what I mean? You could end up having people that are deterred by that. Now, it's important, I think, for this audience to understand, and I'm going to be a little bit different than most people in the pricing industry on this. I think low season is equally as important as high season to your ability to generate maximum revenue. And the reason for that is if everybody else, like let's say, I'm over here in Knoxville, let's say everybody else in this area is too high or they're not getting the bookings and I do get those bookings, that's going to increase my ability to get more money during the peak season. I've proven to Airbnb, I will work with them. I've gotten them bookings. I've generated revenue. I'm taking care of their guests when only 20% of the market's occupied. Guess what Airbnb is going to do? They're going to pat you on the back. They're going to bump you up in the algorithm. So again, revenue is a 365 days a year thing. On the other side of what we talked about with having rates too low, if you go in there and you have your price too high, like maybe you set a minimum of $400 because you're like, I don't care. Nobody's going to come in here during this time. Well, you're going to be stuck without any bookings. And the longer you go without any bookings, even if the market is not very occupied, it's going to hurt your placement in those algorithms, ultimately hurting your ability to generate max revenue.
Yeah, absolutely. And, especially too, if you are co-hosting for other folks, or I do full service property management as well as co-hosting. part of my job is to educate my owners on that, because in my market, again, a lot of my properties are at the beach, where not many families are taking beach vacations when it's 50 degrees outside, right?
Yep.
And a lot of my owners may not understand the variances that we are seeing in our market. So again, if you're co-hosting or if you're property managing for other people, it's really important to make sure that you're staying in good communication with your owners and helping them understand what the market is doing.
Absolutely.
So I want to ask you from a PriceLabs perspective, and feel free, I can bring your screen up and we can walk through this, but the good news is PriceLabs handles some of this seasonality already for us. So let's dive into that.
Yeah, sure. And I've been showing it on some of our previous ones. I've got a listing in Breckenridge, Colorado. This is a perfect example of how PriceLabs works, in my opinion. When demand's there, we're pushing those rates for you. When demand's not there, we're bringing them down, but we're not just cutting the legs out from underneath you, trying to get you $40 by any stretch. So in Breckenridge, peak ski season is the big deal. It's really January up until April when the mountain closes, but really you can say February and March. And then right after all the snow melts, you get into mud season, and nobody wants to go out there because you can't hike, you can't ski. You just got to kind of sit out there and, watch the snow melt, basically. So what PriceLabs does, we factor all of this in for you. We have what's called a seasonality factor and a demand factor. Seasonality looks at historically, how do these dates typically perform? We know that February is a ski season, so we're automatically going to have rates up there for you. But then we include that demand factor as well, which says, okay, it's high ski season, but is it even in more demand? And that really helps these rates dial in. So let's get down here, and you'll start to notice as I'm scrolling those different colors. Let's get up here, and I've got a big booking right here. It's a dummy one, so I'm not gonna say like I did on other ones that, hey, I did a bad job, and then take credit for a good one, because that's just fake data in there. But right here we can look. President's Day weekend is huge in February. So we know that every February, even last February when the snow was a little down, this is a high season date. So when I come to my tooltip, I can see that PriceLabs is bumping me up pretty significantly for seasonality, as well as pretty significantly for demand factor, meaning this date in particular is booking well in advance of when it did last year. Now, if I come back down here to March, we have peak spring break season right here, and you can see how high those rates are. And I hover over that. Again, we have very high seasonality here. So you've set that base price. The base price, again, is your average daily rate across an entire calendar year. And then PriceLabs looks and says, okay, your base rate's at 483, but this is a really good season for you. So we're bumping it up. So here's my base price right now, based off seasonality. And then it's even more demand than it was last year. So now here's my base price with all of that information factored in there. So you could think of this and say, my starting point for this particular date is actually $1,111 instead of that 483. Now, on the opposite end of this is that mud season where we know pricing is going to get lower. So we went from 1,700 to down here, we're getting into the 4s and the 3s. So let's look at this one. So again, we're starting at that base price of 483. People aren't going out there for mud season. So we take 31% off. We're starting at 331. Now, as crazy as it is, there's even less demand right now for mud season than there had been previously. So we're bringing that down even more. So your starting point for this low season date is at $304 as compared to that 483, and as compared to that 1,111 during peak season. So every day is unique. Every day has different seasonality demand factor combinations there. So we're always trying to get you that right booking, that right price at the right time so you can get booked up.
Yeah. Yeah. Super interesting. And I love that we can hover over this and see all that information pop up, because again, I think a lot of people just assume, well, gosh, I just need to go lower my base price and then I'll get bookings, where, that could absolutely hurt us for sure. For sure. I'm curious, from your vantage point, instead of just lowering base price, what should people adjust when it comes to slow season?
Yeah. So let's, and again, we're gonna pretend a little bit because of the one I'm looking at. It's not necessarily low season, but let's pretend that July and August are low season here. If I come over to this, and I know that Breckenridge, it has that high peak season. We know seasonality and demand are jumping it up during peak season. But if I come in here and I adjust this, and I take this, theoretically down to 450, that's going to lower my rates for every single day across the board. Yeah. Now, if I just want to get some bookings here in this short period for my low season, I can come over and I can do what's called date specific override and just grab this time period and do a nice little one-click change and say, let's bring this down just a little bit. Now, I'm a big proponent, if you ever use date-specific overrides, of sticking with percentage-based as compared to fixed. If you set a fixed price, meaning if I click this and I say my price is $250, we get in that same situation we've discussed before where my rates aren't moving. I might lose some algorithm placement. So stick with percentages here. Now, one other thing that you can do that can be really, really beneficial for you, and this is getting into the customization side of PriceLabs. If you identify that there is a discrepancy during a period and you always want it to be a little bit different, you can come over here to your customizations, and we have what's called a custom seasonal profile. So underneath all customizations, you can go right over here. And again, on one of our previous recordings, we talked about don't touch these until you know when to use them. Right now is one of those times where we're figuring out when to use them. So turn on the all custom seasonal profile or allow custom seasonal profiles. I can go to this repeating seasons right here. And again, I'm all about pretending. Let's pretend that I didn't have those in there. Add season profile. I can say low season, and I can go July 1st to August 31st. And again, percentage versus fixed. I'll be at percentage. And I can come right here and say, you know what? My min price of 150 makes sense, but maybe I want to bring that down if I need to. And I'm sorry, I did percentage. We can take 10% off of that. Maybe I take 10% off my max price if I need to. You can use this to really help yourself out or set boundaries for a low season. So if we know that rates never need to get higher than $300, they never really need to get lower than 150, you can use this fixed area to control how much spike you have in here. So I could set this at 175, then let's say 250. And now those are, my pricing is going to fit between those two. So it'll never get lower than I necessarily want it. But just in case there's some nice demand, my pricing will never pop up too high either. So this is another way that you can go in there and protect yourself. And again, if you ever have any questions about these things when you hop into customizations, look for those blue hyperlinks and it'll be able to help you out and you can learn a little bit more about it.
Yeah. And the custom seasonal profiles, I think, are so incredibly helpful because, as we get to know our market and understand, we know, gosh, this weekend books really well every year, or this set of, 3 weeks, I'm super busy every year. Well, you can have as many of those lines in that custom seasonal profile as you want, correct?
You can. And my advice would be, if you're using the seasonal profiles, stick to what we see here, the min price, maximum price, and minimum stay profiles. I'm going to show it just because you know it or because it's here, but you do have other options like base price here. Please do not set a different base price within your custom seasonal profile. If you set a base price that's higher, or if you do anything with it, it makes it really hard for you as the user to identify where a problem might lie. And then ultimately, if I used a base price and I went and I increased it for a peak season, we saw what happened during peak season with demand factor and seasonality. It could push your rates too high. And on the same end on low season, if you set a lower base price here, maybe you've gone and adjusted your main base price. You might forget to adjust this one. And so don't layer too many things on there until you really know how to use them. But this is, in my opinion, this is a great way to control the peaks and valleys of those rates.
Right.
This percentage one is a really great way to just differentiate it slightly. So again, if you wanted to take 5% off of your min price or something like that. We're not going to dive in here, but if you ever have any questions about min stay profiles, go take a look at that. You can build out minimum stay profiles separately for your seasons as well.
Love it. Well, I guess my question is, with regard to minimum stay profiles, when is the right time to adjust those from your vantage point?
Yeah, I think my recommendation, especially for the sisterhood audience, is always going to be to trust PriceLabs recommendations here. Again, you have controls on putting those lower, but there might be a time where you want to have something a little bit different. If you know for a fact, like I'm able to get 4-night stays during the month of July and they stop trying to get 4 nights beyond 90, that would be a use case for building that out in custom seasonal profile. But for your audience, I would say if you think you need to put a minimum stay profile in that custom seasonal, reach out to support@pricelabs.co and get some help from somebody internally that can make sure that it's set up correctly. You could always end up putting a number wrong and making a mistake. So reach out. Basically, if you want to try something and you're not 100% sure, reach out to our team. We got a whole bunch of people willing to help.
Your team is awesome. I absolutely love the PriceLabs folks. One of the things I love most is that everyone wants to help. You know what I mean? It's very obvious to me that your company culture is one of service and you really truly care about your customers. And I love that personally. So
I don't want to toot everybody's horn. I'm just going to say I'm blessed working where I work. It's incredible.
That's so good. So good. All right. I want to talk about your minimum price floor. When do I need one and how do I figure out the right number for my property, especially in low season?
Yeah. The best thing that you can do, in my opinion, and unless you just have a incredibly economic friendly type of a property, and by that I'm talking budget friendly, not a lot of frills, it's just, like an extra room. On those, you just need to go to whatever the market will dictate for you. In a previous conversation that I had with you, we talked about neighborhood data quite a bit. You can use this to really understand where the pricing might need to be at to get booked at. Now, this isn't low season for us, but I'm going to pull out and go to 360. That way we can look at May right here. And I'm going to draw into this. And what is happening right now? I can see where the market sits. And when I talked about this previously, the gray is the 25th to 50th percentile of the market, meaning they have pricing set up that is market type of pricing. It's not undercutting, but you can use this right here to really understand where you might need to be. Now, I'm proud of PriceLabs because I just hopped in here and it's low season and my pricing is literally riding that bottom line, which is beautiful to see. But if it wasn't, if my rates were up here in the pink, I could hover over any particular date and I could look right here at that gray line in this box and I could see the pricing for the 25th to the 50th percentile. So right now it's at 376 to 620. I can use that directionally and I could say, okay, 376 is what the bottom end of the quality market is showing. Let's cut that down a little bit. Maybe I go to 350 there, or vice versa, you make little tweaks based off of that. My current pricing is 381 for that. I'm sorry, I moved off of my date. My current pricing is 381. The market is at the bottom end 376. I can now use this to go in and say, okay, I don't want to be too low. I don't want to go to $200, but I could set it there at a more realistic level, and I'm still at a very bookable range there.
Great. I'm curious also if someone is in low season and they're not getting the bookings that they want or need, what is your recommended step where they can have a comfort level that they're priced right for the low season?
Yeah. Real quick, do you mind if we re-record that spot? You broke up, so I didn't hear the full question.
Yeah, sure. I'll just ask it again. Let's say it is low season Sorry, something is happening here. I don't know if you can hear that. Something is falling. That's very strange.
I I do hear something kind of in the background. Yeah.
What is that? Okay.
Got somebody tapping on the door or the wall behind you.
I don't know. Maybe there's a ghost in here. I don't know. Okay, here we go. Gotta love editors.
Yep.
So let's say we're in the middle of slow season and we're not getting the bookings that we want. What is your recommendation of the first go-to on how do I know if my pricing is right for low season?
Yeah. Again, I'm going to rely on neighborhood data and PriceLabs and verifying that where I'm sitting in the market makes a lot of sense. Something else that I would absolutely recommend in low season. Now, we talked about this on a previous one as well, our comp set area down here. Identifying those competitors that you are competing against during low season as well as high season is going to be very, very beneficial to you. Now, I don't have the best high quality comp set in here right now, as we can see, with some really high price points, but that's for July. So if I go out here to my peak or to my low season, which will be in May, now I can see kind of where I sit against these. And really I can see I'm in a good spot. I'm at 408. My next closest competitors at 415. They're at 650. And if you really know who you're competing against and you have these insights into what their rates are, you can use this to maneuver and make sure you're in line. But I would pay attention to what your good comps are doing, and then also pay attention up here to what the market pricing level is at, and try to be right there in that. During low season, you want to be more towards the bottom side of it, not necessarily out of the pink area, but you want to make sure you're pushing more towards the bottom side of that.
Love it. Kyle, this is so helpful. Thank you so much. I know that come slow season, people are going to be referring back to this video over and over and over again. So thank you.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure, and looking forward to the next one with you.
So now you know that low season doesn't have to become a race to the bottom. But that brings us to another important question. When you do have empty nights on your calendar, what should you actually change? Because price is only one lever. And in the next video, Kyle and I are digging into minimum stays, length of stay discounts, booking windows, base price, and how to figure out which lever is actually keeping you from getting the bookings that you want. Before you change another rate, watch this next video, and I'll see you there.